Welcome back to the FTN NFL Team Preview Series. I'm your host, Mike Randle. Follow me on X at Randle Rand. And as always, we are sponsored by Boom Fantasy. Boom Fantasy is the top choice for daily sports action as the innovative games cater casual, hardcore fans. You can win up to 500 times your entry only at Boom Fantasy. You can download it, App Store, Google Play. Use that promo code FTN. You can get a no-sweat bonus up to $100. And today, folks, we have a real treat. We're going to have Stephanie Stradley on X at Steph Stradley. She writes about the Texans for the Houston Chronicle. She is fantastic. Gives us a lot of insight here about the Texans, who already played a game in the Hall of Fame game and is ready to roll here as one of the legit Super Bowl contenders in the NFL. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us. We'll get started here. Hall of Fame game. What were your takeaways? What did you see? Not a lot from the starters, of course, but maybe those little insights that you noticed, offense or defense.
Well, I've been watching all of their training camp and, into mini camp before that. So none of it really surprised me. I think the biggest thing that they're looking for is back of the depth, back of the roster depth. Like that is something that you're kind of looking at, seeing what they're going to add to the roster. You could see that at times the scheme was really favorable to the different players that were in the game at different times, both on offense and on defense. One thing that was kind of interesting to me was we saw the debut of Cam Akers, who was kind of a last minute add-on to the team. He's recovered from 2 Achilles injuries. There is that new technique that they use to repair Achilles that, Aaron Rodgers used. Mm-hmm. And just in very small moments, he has shown some bursts. So like if you're having a running back room that is Mixon and Pierce and Akers, that's a bunch of different skill sets that you could bring to the table. And it's just something to watch because, Mixon has been out for early training camp and Pierce claims to know the scheme better now than he did last year. So, it's something to watch.
Yeah, the Cam Akers thing is a perfect segue here to the backfield because Joe Mixon comes over, 28 years old, still very much in his prime, versatile running back with the Bengals, can catch it, got a lot of carries at the goal line. Dameon Pierce, great 2 years ago, last year really struggled, and now Cam Akers. So my question is, how do you think the touch share is going to go? Because, Stephanie, what we see is a lot of times these NFL coaches don't really favor giving one back the majority of carries. And now bringing Akers in, I just wonder how much they're going to give Mixon. Maybe they're saving him a little bit to the end of the year. I've had the same questions with Luke Jones about Derrick Henry with the Ravens. What do you think here with this Texans backfield and how it's going to shake out? And is Akers really going to be maybe an issue if he looks as good as he did in the Hall of Fame game?
Well, it's not an issue from football, but from a fantasy perspective, I anticipate, assuming health, all that Mixon is going to get the lion's share of the carries, and that if the Texans have the offense that they think that they have, you're going to have a lot of aggression in the first half of games, and then you're going to want to close out the games with a variety of running backs. But Joe Mixon, assuming health, is the exact running back that you want for this scheme. He's good in short yardage, which is something that they struggled with last year to some degree. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, which puts a lot of pressure on defenses. That's what they want to be doing. And he's money at the goal line. And so I would see him as being the goal line option. They want him, they targeted him. They gave him the contract. They respect his ability to get ready and be prepared. So he is their plan A. But, as the season progresses, you just see who contributes. And, they anticipated last year that Pierce would be a bigger part of the offense, but he wasn't performing very well. And then his touches decreased as the year progressed. But this is a new year, and it's just about, monitoring the health of the running backs and seeing who is being effective.
Let's go to the wide receivers. Certainly, the Texans offense looks to be one of the best in the NFL. CJ Stroud, all those silly rumors or negatives prior to the draft have all gone by the wayside, Stephanie. We can say that for sure after a fantastic rookie season. So now you add Stephon Diggs. So what you have now are incredible receivers in Nico Collins, 80 receptions, over 3 yards per route run, just phenomenal numbers. Tank Dell, who is fantastic early, then got injured, of course, but did produce a lot of his points on touchdowns, the 7 touchdowns, only 47 receptions. And Stephon Diggs, an elite wide receiver. Throw in Dalton Schultz, who had a pretty solid season. My question is, what is the order here? Is it just going to be divided evenly? Is Nico Collins still going to be the one? Where does Diggs fall in this sort of outforce here in what's a really potent Texan passing attack?
Well, CJ Stroud himself called it the 5-headed monster. And, we're like, who are the 5 heads of the monster? And really the way that the team has talked about is like, whoever the guys are that are in for the particular game, that's going to be the 5-headed monster. Mm-hmm. I think I guess the best way to look at it is kind of like looking at the other schemes that are similar to what the Texans are running now, looking at the 49ers, looking at the Dolphins. And really, when this scheme is being run the way that they want it to be run, the ball's going to go to the open guy. And CJ Stroud from like in training camp last year is a ball delivery machine. Like you can just see that the scheme is supposed to always have somebody that's open. It's going to be very difficult for teams to double Nico or double Diggs. So there's going to be an open guy. So a lot of it's going to be from a fantasy perspective, seeing which targets does that team have a problem with. Like, sometimes some defenses have problems with the tight end. Sometimes defensives have problems with running backs catching out of the backfield. So I think a lot of it is looking at what the matchups are for that particular week and seeing who's the guy that's going to put up big numbers, because there were other wide receivers for the Texans last year who had huge games because that was just what happened for that particular week. So I think it's going to be just the 5-headed monster. There's going to be big breakout games for different guys, but they're going to be productive throughout the year.
Excellent advice. Let's turn to the defense here. The question coming in, run defense was elite. Second best per Aaron shots here at FTN, DVOA, run defense, DVOA, right behind Detroit. Question is the pass defense, ranked 16th overall as a team in defense, but it's the pass defense that has to improve. This team has aspirations of a Super Bowl. They have an aspiration to make a deep run in the AFC playoffs. Talk about the defensive additions and how you see this defense improving, because it was really, you could not run against the Texans last year.
Yeah, I mean, this is DeMeco Ryans' defense. He takes pride in the defense. I think that they're going to be very good this year. Adding Danielle Hunter with Will Anderson Jr., pick your poison with that. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing that you should look at from the defensive perspective is it's going to be hard for them to be a good pass defense team, mostly because their offense is going to put such pressure on opposing offenses that teams facing them have a game script where they're going to have to go blow by blow against the Texans offense. So they may take more risks because they think that they need to take more risks. Or if CJ Stroud puts up points early, then you're going to have situations where there's trash time. So that is a possibility. But then the other possibility is dominant defenses in a league now that doesn't favor that. The referees do not favor defenses in the state. But if you can put together a defense that is elite in this particular era, that is a difference maker. But I anticipate this defense is going to be good, barring some key injuries, like with any team. But yeah, I think DeMeco Ryans takes pride in solid defense, and their idea behind it is swarm, which is everybody's going to be swarming to the ball and directing the ball to go where the most players are.
Stephanie, fantastic stuff. Last question, then I will get you out of here. Strength of schedule. Yeah. So Houston now steps into the role as the 7th hardest strength of schedule per Vegas projected opposing win totals. What I did here at FTN is I also broke this down by non-conference strength of schedule. Texans non-conference strength of schedule per projected win totals, of course, is the worst in the league by far. 3 games clear of Buffalo, Kansas City, Dallas, and San Francisco. Just talk about the vibe around the team, what you're hearing. Do they not care about that sort of stuff? Do they recognize it's going to be a difficult schedule? Because again, this team, both sides of the ball, head coach, quarterback, weapons, everything you mentioned, Danielle Hunter coming in really does look like one of the top teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is they're not going to have a bunch of noon starts on Sunday. Like they have a lot of primetime games, and that involves a lot more discipline on their part.
Mm.
But I think it also gives them opportunities to find rest for their players during the year, and that's one of the things that they talked about with the opportunities of that schedule. The key thing from a fantasy perspective is their December is like somebody doesn't like them in December. They have a 10-day period from December 10th to Christmas where they play the Dolphins, the Chiefs, and the Ravens.
Yes.
And so a lot of maybe their playoff aspirations is going to be how do they survive that set of games and come out the other side where they're healthy and they have a record that can maybe get them home field advantage.
That is an excellent point. Bye week in week 14, home Miami, at Kansas City, and home Baltimore. Certainly right there. Folks, Stephanie Stradley, just outstanding job giving us here all around offense, defense, everything on X at Steph Stradley, writes for the Texans at the Houston Chronicle, does a fantastic job. Stephanie, thank you so much for a few minutes. We're into the Texans in the fantasy world. The NFL as well. Should be a big season for Houston. So good luck with everything. We'd love to check in with you later in the year, see how things are going, but it's going to be a big year for the Texans. We appreciate a few minutes.
Thanks for having me on, Mike.
The NFL Team Preview Series is sponsored by Boom Fantasy, your top choice for daily fantasy sports action. Boom Fantasy has the most innovative games that cater to both casual and hardcore fans. Win up to 500 times your entry only at Boom Fantasy. Download now on the App Store and Google Play. Use promo code FTN to get a no-sweat bonus up to $100.